Shining bright, sunshine in the sky. Megan and Tammy here to testify, spreading love, laughter and good vibes too. The Fat Girl Chronicles, we're breaking through. No more hiding.
Hi, my name's Tammy.
And I'm Megan.
And together we are
The Fat Girl Flippers.
And this is the Fat Girl
Chronicles. This is like our third take.
This is gonna have to work. This is the Fat Girl Chronicles. It's our weekly podcast where we talk about everything exciting and we talk a lot about fat topics, and Megan's going to tell you a little bit more about our podcast.
Yeah, so if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell to remind you whenever we post a new video. Usually it's on Fridays. This week we're running a little bit late. But yeah, it'll let you know. And then the other thing is we also have our podcasts on all the podcast streams. So Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of it. So if you prefer just the audio version, like if you're cruising to work or whatever, then feel free to listen to that as well. So I guess before we get started, sometimes we talk about our weeks. Did you want to say how your week's been going?
I had a pretty good week.
Okay.
What did I do this week? I got a lot more work done around here, although it doesn't look like it today. But I got some things done. It was hard because I moved in here and if anybody lives in a tiny home, you know that there's no space for anything, but that's what we love. And I moved in here in November, and it was hard because moving in during, colder months, and it's hard to get things. So I've got stuff still on my deck, and I'm trying to get things straightened out. Anyway, I'm slowly getting through that stuff and slowly figuring out what works and what doesn't work inside, and getting things modified to, work the right way. And I'll tell you, it's a process. But it's a fun process, and it's something I've wanted my whole entire life, so I am thankful. But it is a process, trying to fit. It's like playing like a human game of Tetris. Like, literally, you're trying to squeeze your life into these little slots, and you've got to make that slot work. Like, for example, I have a slot that I know is maximum 13 inches by 27 inches, so I had to find a narrow shelf to go in there that would hold what I wanted to hold.
Right.
Yeah. So, but anyways, it's fun. It's fun trying to do that, and it's a treasure hunt trying to find the things that fit in the right spots, and when you do find something, it's exciting. Yeah. So that's what my week is mostly consisted of that.
Okay. I'm trying to think. My week was pretty, I think, boring. Like, I had work, like, nothing too chaotic. What did I do? Oh, I went out with Candace, my friend, so that was fun. I went out quite a bit last week, and I have another, like, friendship date, I guess, on Tuesday, so that's fun. Like, we're going to supper or whatever in the city. But yeah, it was kind of a boring week, like, nothing too exciting. The podcast is late because I was super tired Thursday. I didn't sleep at all, like, Wednesday night, and then by the time, like, midday came around, I said to Tammy, I'm like, this is a wall that I'm hitting. Like, I can't handle it. So, yeah, I was super tired on Thursday.
And both of us know now that when we're in that state, we would rather just allow the other person some grace and allow them to get the rest they need, because we both know what that feels like.
For sure.
So that's, no hard feelings on either end of us for any time. So if you see the podcast is late one week and you wonder why, a lot of times it could be fatigue, whatever. Yeah. Because Megan is extremely busy. It's hard to fit things in.
Yeah. And we had a good time yesterday.
Yeah.
We celebrated somebody's birthday.
Yeah.
So that was exciting.
Yes. Played a few games, stayed up late for the old ladies. Well, late for this old lady.
Yes, it's funny because I said to Richard, I was like, I should be any later than 9 or 10. But I ended up getting home like 9:45.
I was going to say it couldn't have been past 10.
No, and he was like, yeah, that's going to happen. You'll be home like early, just because I'm like that. But yeah, no, it was fun. We played some games. I think we're gonna do that again. Like,
Yes,
to play
which will be
games.
fun. I like the games. I think board games are making a comeback.
Oh, they should be, because like it is fun to do.
Yeah, and I think people are. I've been watching a lot more social media where people are becoming conscious of how much time they're spending on their phones.
On their phones, yeah.
And they're taking little mini vacations from their
Yeah.
phones and looking for things like that, like nature or board games, or, well, especially in the wintertime, like puzzles, things that they can do inside. You know, just to. I had a good suggestion from one of my counselors, and it was, even if you don't feel like taking a break from your phone, just set the timer for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And do something else, even if it's just look at pictures in a book or
Yeah.
whatever. Just do something else to switch your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought of something that happened this week actually.
Oh, sorry.
I
I hijacked the conversation.
know what you had said, I don't know, triggered something to remember. So it's kind of an update. A long time ago, like when we were in your, I don't want to say your old apartment, but your old apartment. Like not your old, but your old.
The best apartment.
No, the one in between. The one you were last at.
Ugh.
Yeah. When we were at that apartment, we talked about like fears, and I brought up my aunt. So dementia runs, for anyone who didn't listen to it, yeah, dementia runs in my family, like pretty hardcore, my mom's side. And so this weekend, my aunt called my mom, and like keep in mind, she'd only be like her mid-60s at most, I think. And so anyway, she just kind of rambles now. So she got early onset dementia, and we noticed it pretty bad when she came like within the last year, but she deteriorated really fast. So anyway, she's like pretty well non-verbal in the sense that she can mumble and kind of make noises, but like you can't really understand what she's saying. And then we got the news that she's actually gonna have to go to a lockdown unit, so, which is pretty scary considering her age. Like, she's young. Like, that's really young.
That's like 10 years older than me.
Yeah. Yeah. And my other aunt, which is funny because this is an aunt that will likely come up with our topic. She is I'm trying to think, it goes Anne, who is just the one who has to go to the lockdown unit, my mom. And then so this other aunt is like the third oldest. And she is also having signs of early onset. And my youngest aunt, who is probably in her 40s or 50s, is also talking about like being seen by a doctor because she's noticing some shift. So it's like a lot of people in my family. My grandmother had it. My grandmother had early onset. So anyway, that came up, and that I think that is very scary for me because when I think about like my fertility journey, I think like, okay, so if it takes me like a year or two to have a kid, then I'll be like, you know, early to mid 30s. And if I get dementia in my 60s, that's I've already lived half my life. Even without the fertility stuff. It's like I've already lived half of my life. So that's a scary spot to be in. And the other thing is like for testing, my mom doesn't want to get tested because she doesn't want to know whether she's going to develop anything. Because there's testing that you can do.
I
So
can
that's a
see
hard
your
question.
mom's point of view because
Yeah.
a lot of people choose, and I think this is an admirable choice as well, is to choose not to know, and they just live their life the best. You know, that I think that they
Yeah.
live their life more purposefully,
Yeah.
and they live their life full of more joy because you've always got that in the back of your mind. I think that you don't know how much time you have left.
Well,
But
that's the thing.
the absolute truth of that, and as sad as it may be, is if we all sat down today and started thinking about the relatives that have died and when they died and all of that, we really don't know when anybody's going to die.
Well, I mean, you
I
can
mean,
get
there's-
hit by a bus tomorrow, right?
There's
Yeah.
definitely a higher chance of something happening, yes.
For sure.
And it certainly is a worry. And I feel bad that you're worrying about it along with your fertility journey because for me that makes it sad because I feel like you should be able to enjoy your fertility journey and not worry about how long am I going to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, it's even brought up, like, like, with Richard and stuff, like, what the I guess game plan would be.
What the picture would look like.
Like, if I was ever diagnosed, what I would want. And so, yeah, it's a tough question.
It's a difficult subject too. I mean, that must have been really hard to talk about.
Yeah. Dementia really, like, and Alzheimer's and stuff, that is so
it's a cruel,
crappy.
cruel death.
Yeah.
And there's no way to know what the person who has it, what they're feeling or thinking.
Exactly.
Although, there's got to be some internal turmoil, because a lot of times they get that way. Like, they get anxious and they get combative and things like that.
Sure.
But even for the people who love them, I think it's an even worse journey.
It is. And that's what my dad said. He was like, as sad as you are, like, chances are she really isn't, like, quite, she won't be able to process it. She is, like, fine in her own head. Like, but then I don't know if that's true, though. Like,
I don't necessarily believe that.
Yeah,
Because, like, if that's the case, then why do they get combative? And why do they start, like, taking off all their clothes and going outside?
Yeah.
Or why do they,
yeah.
why do
Why
they
do
try
to run?
Yeah. If they felt happy and content and didn't know what was going on, they wouldn't do those things.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
So it makes me almost wonder if there's an internal battle against the brain and the body,
Probably. It'd be interesting to, like, I don't know, get into someone's mind.
I've been very fortunate because nobody in my immediate family has had dementia. But my Uncle Wayne did pass with dementia, and it was very, very hard to watch that process and watch the decline and watch the struggle and the anguish of the family.
Yeah.
It was very hard.
Yeah.
And, there were so many times when my heart went out to them, because sometimes there's just nothing you can do except, just try and be there for the person. And, but it's a difficult journey.
It is. And people who, like, I mean, even though you haven't had any in your immediate family, like, you've witnessed it. So people who haven't witnessed it, I don't, like, they wouldn't be, not that they wouldn't be empathetic, but it's something you really have to witness to really understand.
Yeah, and not only witnessing, but listening to the stories from the
For
family, about the sharing the hard stuff, the things that might be, or the other thing was that the family learned to laugh after a while about some of the things that were difficult, because there was nothing else they could do. In sheer frustration, of course, right?
Of course.
And not laughing at him, but laughing at a situation that might happen.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
Because you have to find the humor, too.
Yeah. So, with that being said, do we want to get into our week's topic?
Sure.
Okay, so basically, we were thinking about, well, Tammy has been thinking about, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Do you have to love family? And that can mean, like, dealing with strained relationships in family, feeling like you have to love family members, feeling that you have to like family members or have to be around family members. And then, of course, boundary setting is probably going to come up because, we love to talk about boundaries. Did you want to start?
I just want to preface this by saying that I've been estranged from my family for a while. And it's a difficult subject for me to broach, but I think that it's important because I think there's a lot more people out there dealing with this than are willing to speak about it. And I think it's important that we share this and people know the pain that comes along with it. I just think it's important. It's an important subject. Yeah, especially for me. And I'm being selfish in this moment, but it is an important subject for me to talk about.
Yeah. Okay, so did you want to talk more about that, or you need a break?
I need a break for a second.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, you have some instances in your family too of estrangement. So
so I'm of the belief that you can have a found family. I think that's what they call it. Found family, which is family that's not biological, like basically friends, right? People that aren't, or maybe like very, very distant family that, there might be some sort of biological connection, but it's very, very distant. So yeah, I really do believe that you can have that. In my instance, it's difficult because when you think about things like the holidays, and I think we kind of touched a little bit on this.
That was going to be
for
my next
Christmas.
topic
Yeah,
about.
I think that so like there's a lot of pressure, especially like for me, for example, in the workplace. All you hear is, oh, you're going home to the family. What family? Who are you spending Christmas with? What family members are you spending Christmas with? Like, it's usually about family in those moments. And so that can be really difficult, especially if you don't have a relationship with the family.
Yeah, and I've struggled for many years now with, not being included, not being invited to family functions with my immediate family, and it's really hard to know that, especially now living in close proximity to them, and I have for the last, like almost 8 years now, and this has been my choice, ultimately. Some of it has not been, but not all family is healthy for you to be around. And sometimes, no matter how badly it hurts not to be involved, not to be invited, not to be included, it may be in your own best interest to try and, like Megan said, find your own family unit that supports you and makes you feel like family and includes you. Find other people that are in your same situation or in very similar situations. Oftentimes I find myself making friends with what I call orphan people or people that are not estranged or separated from them, but like physically separated by distance from their real families and things.
Yeah.
I'm always connected to those people, and I don't know why. I seem to be attracted to that type of person. But yeah, it's very hard when you're not included in things. It feels very hurtful. Yeah.
Yeah. I think on my end, so it's so funny because like the way my mom, for example, was raised would be like everybody and anybody could kind of come and go of the house. Everybody was family. She had like a big family. And like my grandparents like took in a lot of people, whether it's like, their own siblings or whatever. And so she was always kind of used to a home that had like a lot of family. And I would say on my father's side, it was like vastly different. And then so growing up in my household, while I got to know like my mom's side of the family a little bit, I definitely was like more estranged from my father's side. And so I think that, yeah, it's difficult because when it comes to like being a child or growing up and like not knowing a side of your family can be difficult because you just like don't know that history, that side that you come from, that sort of thing. Like that can be hard.
It's funny that you mention that because I'm in the same scenario. Growing up, when my grandfather was alive, because we lived in my grandfather's house, and my dad has a lot of brothers and sisters, that at Christmas time everybody would come to visit my grandfather, so ultimately we would get a visit too. So we had and we always had a family Christmas party and that side of the family and everything. So I had a much closer relationship in my childhood
Yeah.
with my father's family.
Right.
And I wouldn't say it was closer because I was a child, but I mean, there were more things going on and there were people coming and going. The older I got, the less that happened. And once my grandfather passed, nobody came anymore to the house.
Right.
Nobody visited or anything like that. So, but my mom's family, I never knew, really.
Interesting.
I mean, there were occasional Friday night in the car visits to, my grandmother and grandfather. But I never really got to know my aunts and uncles on that side of the family. And as an adult, I've always had this curiosity about my cousins, my aunts and uncles, and all that kind of stuff on the other side of the family. So I've made a conscious effort of trying to get to know them over the years because I don't really have any information about, like family health history or
Right.
anything like that.
Right.
So it helps to have relatives that are from that side of the family that can kind of fill you in.
Right. That is important, Yeah. And I think the other thing to think about, like when we're talking about like strained relationships with family, would be things like generational trauma. So like mental health in both sides of my family, like both father and mother's side, like my family tree is just like entrenched in mental health, and that can be a struggle.
It's so funny because I'm sitting here looking at you and you're on the verge of tears and I'm on the verge of tears. And it's so funny. And it's not.
Yeah.
It's not funny. But it is so ironic that the people that are supposed to love us the most cause us the most anguish
Yeah.
and the pain and the hurt. It's just, I guess, I wonder sometimes if people knew how much hurt they cause by doing the no contact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's, I don't know why, but the last couple of podcasts we've been...
An effing mess.
But you know what?
Next one's gonna be fun, I promise.
No, I don't care if we're an effing mess because we're speaking the truth and
That's
it's
true.
time that it needs to be said.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, think about our last podcast
I know.
and the comments we got.
And that's what we wanted to say too. Well, I'll try to take a couple breaths before I say this, but you guys, the outpouring of feedback we got from our last podcast, from being vulnerable and telling our truths, which in turn had you guys telling your truths, which made us not feel so alone because there were so many similar stories to our own. So I guess that's what encourages us to continue and be honest and tell our stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No matter how hard it is.
Yeah.
No matter how much I have to wipe my eyes.
I think I feel that I do have, some, a couple of aunts that, I don't speak to because of, their own history. And when I think about what you said, I think about, so if my mother and my aunt hate each other, and if my aunt wasn't nice to my mom, and I support that my mom needed to set that boundary. Mm-hmm. What you said is interesting in that I wonder if they know the impact. Well, the impact of that is that I don't know 4 of my cousins.
Exactly.
Right? And so that's hard because it's while I may not care for my aunt because of certain actions, it doesn't necessarily mean that those reflect my cousins, right? And so I'm estranged from 4 people that I met 2 of them as my grandfather was dying in the retirement home, And I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I could walk by you in Walmart and not even know that I was walking by you. Like, immediate, like, like a first cousin, like a cousin. Yeah. And that's wild to me. But as far as like needing to set boundaries, I'm not fully, I don't think, estranged from anyone based on needing to protect myself. But I do have immediate family in which our relationship is a lot better because I have distance. And that distance means living outside the house. That distance means choosing when I speak to them or when I don't speak to them, or choosing what topics we've talked about, walking away. And it's also meant to have a journey for understanding their actions better, having a better understanding of why they act the way they do, without excusing their behavior, while also forgiving them but validating myself. So it's like a weird mix of like, I forgive you for me, like I don't want to live with that unforgiveness my entire life. But yeah, it's so hard. It is so hard.
Yeah, I feel like because of my mother having some sort of estrangement from her parents, I missed out on a set of grandparents,
Right.
which my other cousins that had relationships with the grandparents and my other aunts and uncles, the love that they had for these people, I wish I had had a chance to experience that.
So last night would have been hard. Did we talk about any of that last night?
Not really, but
Okay.
but yeah, like my
Yeah,
yes,
you know what I'm
because
getting
that's
at.
yeah. Yeah, and it's just to see that I missed out on grandparents. I mean I had my grandfather on my dad's side and he was amazing. But I feel like I missed out on amazing grandparents on the other side too.
Yeah. Oh, baby. Family's hard.
It is extremely hard.
It's hard because you really are like, your society like makes it so that you have to like love your family, and so when that love doesn't happen, or when there's so much trauma like generationally, and then the thing around that is then there's so much shame and hush hush and quietness and guilt. And I'm a big believer in that, all of these things, trauma, generational trauma, pain, hurt, all of those things, like silence, like that's what makes it thrive. Silence makes all of those things that feel awful really, really, really thrive.
Yeah.
And no one, like, I love when people ask about me. Like, when I first started with Richard, I was like, yeah, my family is like totally effed. Like, we are all very mentally ill. There's like, it runs for generations, whether that's like psychosis to depression to anxiety to personality disorders to everything else. There's tons of people in my family that suffer from one or more of those things. And
both sides of my family have that too.
Right. But people don't talk about that stuff.
No.
And oftentimes, it's really when it comes down to it, a lot of times it's that mental health piece that has us having to take a step back and create that distance from that loved one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or that family member.
And you can, I don't want to say love from a distance, but you can understand from a distance, because some of the boundaries that I had to set that were really, really difficult, with my immediate family, after years of, trying everything I could possibly do to reach out and be complacent and, kind of do what they wanted, I finally had to choose me and stop this craziness.
Yeah.
Like there has to be an end to it somewhere, because otherwise I will be crazy. And I mean, I was stressing myself every day with the thought of, not having my immediate family and mostly my son. And sometimes you just have to choose and hope that in the end they will sit down and look at all the facts. Or maybe look at some facts they were never presented before or never ever thought of. And hopefully, with time, maybe things can get better.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely blessed in the way that I could love from a distance and be able to set boundaries and maintain a relationship. But the reality is, for a lot of people, that the relationships that they have to walk away from are just like unsafe, like completely unsafe. And so, yeah, to have to walk away 100%, I can't even imagine how difficult that would be.
It's, I have my moments where I feel like, oh my God, you made the worst decision of your life. Why did you do that? And you want to go back and you want to try again. But all the trying has just put me in a place where I don't want to be on this planet anymore, because the rejection was so bad. So, in order to save me and some sanity, you have to choose. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I'll be here if you choose that you want to have a relationship with me. My son, that is. The rest of my family, you can go F off.
Certain members.
No,
my
my immediate family,
Yeah.
you can go F off.
Yeah.
You can all find your place in hell where you belong. But yeah, for my son, I really, truly hope that someday, maybe he'll get a chance to look at what really, transpired
Yeah.
in life.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you feel like having like a found family has helped you through things?
Definitely. Yeah, there's times when I never would have made it through. I mean, especially in the early,
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
You were a huge help.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say it's still, to this day, the most difficult thing in the world
Yeah.
to be sitting alone on Christmas Day, knowing your family is less than 5 miles away from you, and they're all sitting down to eat Christmas dinner, and they're, like laughing and exchanging gifts, and that's going on, and you're alone. I mean, it honestly really doesn't get any easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you can
holidays are
talk
hard.
for a while.
Holidays are fucking hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially because I remember what they were like before this. So I know what they will be like now.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad that you were able to speak about it, because I think that people don't realize how hard it is if they never had to experience it, right? Like I said, I'm very, 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 very fortunate that I can love from a distance and can have space if I need to. I'm very fortunate that way. And I'm also very fortunate to have a very loving husband and to have family on his side. And so, while I can't relate to that, my heart feels for you, like my soul feels for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you had found family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm thankful
I'm
for all
especially
the people
thankful
who
for Leo.
stepped in.
Yeah.
You know, in on those times and in those circumstances, that understands
Yeah.
what it's like,
Yeah.
and you know, it just makes life a little easier.
Yeah. And you have, like, you do have quite a bit of, it doesn't and that's the other thing too, like, I don't think found family is so important, but I do think it helps, but I also think that
It's not the same.
it's not the same. I think that when you are rejected by, I'm just going to say, like, family, immediate family that is supposed to love and treasure and all of that stuff, and that doesn't happen, I think just biologically, that's what you ultimately crave and want, like,
Yeah.
from childhood on, right?
Everybody wants the approval of their parents. Everybody wants to be, it doesn't matter how old you are.
Right.
Everybody wants to feel like their family values them.
Of course. So I think, yeah, it's also important just to acknowledge that found family is a blessing
Absolutely.
and has done a lot of good.
Yep.
But there is a certain
Limit.
piece. Yeah, there's a
There's a
certain
limit
piece that's
to-
missing.
yeah, there's a limit to how much found family can fill that gap.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could think of it like a hole, and you're filling it with spackle, and you run out of spackle, and there's an inch around the edge. That's how it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it hurts right to your heart.
Yeah. And I do want to say, like, it, because we kind of have experienced both, like, the aftermath of one of our family members, like a parent, for example, being as brave as you and cutting off relationships and the impact that had on us as kids, but then also admiring that we also had to take those steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's wild when you think about it. There's so much generational stuff with it.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the reason why, I don't think it was my mother who cut off the relations. I
Might
do
have been the
believe
opposite.
I think it was my father not wanting her to have contact with them anymore. I believe that that's the situation. I don't know that to be true, but that's what it was portrayed as. Your father doesn't want to go up there anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's really difficult. Like,
Yeah.
really friggin' difficult.
Yeah.
What else has helped you?
I just try to keep as busy as I can.
Yeah.
Try to get involved with as many things as I can where I can, maybe not necessarily help other people, but do things that would have an impact on other people. So, like, belonging to Lemonade Stand, for example, helps guide other people that have disabilities, and we do a lot of social things, so that's good. It gets people out, and you're kind of with your tribe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so nice. Like, you're with your people.
Yep.
So you just keep your days busy.
Try to, but there's still, you're always, I don't know, for me, I'm always thinking of it in the back of my mind, or there'll be something that will happen that will trigger a thought of,
A loss.
yeah.
Um,
Mostly it's around my son. It's
Of
not
course.
so much around me losing.
yeah.
It's the relationship with my son.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like, because that's the other thing. Like, you can have lost a relationship that you necessarily didn't want to lose, but you can also have lost a relationship that you wanted to lose because of whatever the reason may be. So that can also be difficult, to be losing something that you didn't want to lose.
Yeah.
One amazing another amazing piece, which is I guess part of Found Family, but a little bit slightly different, would be Archie.
Yeah. Archie is the love of my life.
Yeah, like Archie, like having pets,
Yeah.
having like that companionship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's so sweet.
And he's so in tune with me. Like,
He is.
he's just in tune with me. If I'm not feeling well, he knows it. And, you know, like, just the silly, well, you just saw the silly
Yeah.
little things he does. He plays peekaboo, you know, like,
He's so funny.
he's
so funny.
he's crazy, you know, like, but I love him.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think it's just important to acknowledge that, yeah, like so the question ultimately is, do you have to love family because they're family? And I would say
I
that
think
the answer is
no. And that may be fair warning. The answer is no, but it will not be an easy no.
Yeah.
Like then you can. I still feel like even as hard as it is and as emotional as I get about this, cutting those people out of my life was still the right decision. Even if it meant I lost my son because he chose to go with them, ultimately, I still made the right decision for me, and I can't change that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it just comes down to like protecting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And the other thing, I mean, this is something that really strikes me, and like we talk about found families, and you know, you're talking about Leo and things, and of course he's from Mexico. I lived in Belize, so there's a lot of cultural differences between what I'm going to say is like Central American families or maybe third world families versus our first world families. And it goes back to the families rely on each other for support. And if somebody's going through a rough patch, say like a single mom with one child is going through, with no matter how many children, is going through a rough patch and she just can't make it. Never ever would she end up on the streets alone trying to figure it out. Because family would take her in, whether it be her grandmother, an aunt, a sister, her mother and father, even a neighbor. No one would see that woman be on the street alone in a community that you grew up in. It just wouldn't happen. It would not happen. So, although, yes, there are the same relationship issues as we have, there's still a lot more support in real family down there than we have here. I find that here people are all for themselves. We're very
Individualistic.
Yeah. You know, I have a huge house, but I don't have room for you. You know, that kind of attitude. No, we can't help you till you get on your feet because we've helped you too many times. You know, that kind of attitude. Well, I'm telling you, in Mexico or Central America or wherever you are, it wouldn't matter if you had to try 1,700 times to get on your feet. Your family would still support you. They would still love you. They would still treat you like a decent human being. Mm-hmm. And that's a real cultural difference here because you don't see that happening. You don't see people taking in the single mother with the child.
It's definitely not as common.
No, I mean, there may be cases of it, yes, but the common theme is everybody survives on their own.
Yeah, everyone for
you make your bed, you lie in it.
Yeah, everyone for themselves type of thing. Yeah,
And I find that
spoke about
sad.
that,
I find it sad because that family support is so important to giving self-confidence and making people feel like they can succeed, and you know, giving them the support they need if it's like looking after the child while you go to work, or like there's just so much difference in our cultures.
And it's so funny because it's like because you've talked about, like, I think about the saying, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
And we've talked a lot about like your experience in Belize and how how it's very different from here. It's like community, you know your neighbors, you know like when you go to the store, like you know people, you talk to people, you care about people, you survive with people.
Yep.
And here it's like different. Like especially like I think about I grew up in Dartmouth. Like you don't know your neighbor. I mean, some may, but it's not the same vibe. It's not the same
I grew up in a neighborhood of all my family, and it's still not the same vibe.
No, still not the same vibe. So like, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I've often thought about like what it would be like for that child that I raised, and one of the biggest things for me is it is so important for this child to be surrounded by family, whether biological or not. Like, chances are, if the universe will allow it,
When
the universe will allow
allows
it, my announcements will probably come with a lot of t-shirts that say auntie and uncle and nanny and Grammy and all that stuff, right? Because
Grammy TV.
exactly, because I feel being a child of a family where we were isolated a lot of the time, that I missed out, and so I want a village to raise my potential child versus like not, right?
That's like we tell Kaya all the time how
Yeah.
lucky she is to have so many people that love her.
Yeah, for sure.
Not everybody's bickering because she's got 4 grandmas or 4 grandmas that are really not her biological grandmas or
Right.
whatever, but
It's so important.
yes.
So important.
Yeah, because it gives kids that pride that, oh, look, my Grammy got me this, or my Grammy loves me, or,
Yep.
that kind of thing. And it doesn't matter if it's biological Grammy. They don't know, and they don't really care.
Yeah.
They just know that somebody loves them enough to, get the title of auntie or Grammy or...
And ultimately, that means that like when or if something hits the fan and that child one day has to estrange themselves from somebody within that circle, they've got a lot of other family
Yes.
that they can still love and and rely
Yes.
on and feel love from and everything else. But if you are super isolated and then you estrange yourself from the people that you're isolated with, then you're just isolated.
What
Alone.
I find ironic in this situation is growing up, I had built quite a big community of people that loved myself and my son. There was a huge community of people.
Yeah.
And I feel bad because he's chosen not to,
Yeah.
remember or have anything to do with anything from past life. And it's a shame because there's a lot of people that really love him. That he's losing out on that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so hard.
Mm.
Relationships are hard.
Yeah.
Family is hard. Mental health is hard. It's all hard.
Yeah.
It's difficult and it's complex and it's not, right or wrong or good or bad. It's messy.
Yeah.
It is. It's so
Yeah.
friggin' messy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it kills me every day not to have contact. But I know that it's for the best.
Yeah.
And unless something changes, this
Yeah.
is the way it'll be.
Yeah. Is there any other last words of wisdom, any encouragement, anything?
The thing that I would say is if you're estranged from your family, like Megan was mentioning, to build what did you call
found
it?
family.
A found family. And that's not easy either at first because you are very emotional and you're very, and you feel like nothing will be the same.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to get it in your mind that no, yes, you're correct, nothing will be the same. But just because this looks differently doesn't mean it can't be fun too, or you can't get some joy out of it. Because ultimately, even though you've chosen to cut off these relationships, you still have to find ways to bring joy into your life and to be a joyful person and to, positively, I want to say, give back to your community, get involved with your community. That's the advice that I have, is to just throw yourself into something else, just do the best you can. Counseling Counseling,
therapy,
counseling, till you think that you can't take anymore, because that's what I had to do. And yeah, and I don't know that ever ends. Yeah. And I'm sorry to anyone I mentioned in here who may not want to have been mentioned, but I'm telling my truths now. I'm not living for other people.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So I'm sorry if you didn't want to be mentioned, but you're mentioned.
And I would just say, yeah, like, find a way to be compassionate with yourself.
Yeah.
Find your happiness, find what makes you happy, find your found family. And, you know, sometimes it is helpful to understand, in my particular case, it's helpful to kind of understand where somebody may be coming from, or their trauma, or why their behaviors are the way they are, without like excusing it and honoring the pain that they still cause. Because you can, it's like, for me, it's like understanding that water is boiling and then like
Not touching it.
but like understanding water is, how do I put it? It's like putting your hand in boiling water and it being hot, and understanding that you got burned because it was hot, but still like being angry. Like you can still be allowed to be hurt, right? So you can still, I guess, allow yourself to feel hurt by somebody's actions, to feel mistrust or misguided, or however you want to feel about these behaviors, but also understand where they may be coming from, because sometimes that's helpful. I don't know. It's been helpful for me.
And I must say that sometimes you are in a situation where it's dangerous, or it has been dangerous in the past for you to be involved with your family. So that may also, there's no need to feel any shame if that's the reason why you have to cut off contact. I just want to put that out there, because I think a lot of people do feel shame a lot of times, and you have no need to explain to anybody why you have to do anything. But if it's for your best interest and it's to keep you safe, and
especially safety.
Yeah, that's an important one, and that's also a hard one too, because really you're not making that choice. That choice has been made for you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
give yourself grace.
Yeah. Give yourself compassion. Give yourself grace.
Yeah.
If it helps your situation, and because there's things that are just like there's no actually like understanding the behavior like that. There's no understanding it. In my case, I was fortunate enough to understand that what I experienced came from a long line of trauma. So I can understand where that person was coming from. I can understand that, but I can also understand that. You know,
Oh, I get it.
yeah.
I mean, I get where the like
No, I'm speaking about things that you like. There's no without saying it. I'm thinking about things that like there's no excuse. There's no.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand if you get my drift.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what I would just say, that if it helps in your situation, like Tammy, like you said, you understand where things come from, but you're also allowed to hurt from it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't hurt from it. Yeah.
Yeah, because everybody's entitled to their own truth.
Yeah. Exactly. So, with that being said, oh my God, we got 2 sad ones, but we
you
hope
know
that you don't feel alone.
Yeah, and we hope that you feel like you can share with us. And we do like when you share with us.
Yeah.
It was great last week to get some personal feedback. I personally would love to hear if anyone else has issues like I'm facing. That would really help me. So if anybody out there is, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. To share.
Yeah, to share.
All right. Oh, and if something piques your interest and you want to share something but not comment, you can certainly message our page.
Yes, on Fat Girl Flippers, we have a private inbox.
Yeah.
So you can just message us from there. It's, Fat Girl Flippers. Fat Girl Flippers on Facebook.
All right. With that being said, I hope that you guys give yourself some grace and gratitude today. And we love you all.
Mwah.
Feeling small, we're taking up space, standing proud and tall. Our voice is strong, our stories to be heard, challenging the stereotypes, flipping the world, the chronicles of